The morning it all happened, I remember waking up feeling a little off. Nothing too crazy, just a weird kind of heaviness in my chest. My husband, Ryan, was already downstairs, which was rare. He usually slept in longer than I did on Saturdays. But that day, he was up early, making breakfast with an odd sense of cheerfulness. "Coffee's ready," he called up, way too cheerful for 7:30 a.m. I got dressed and headed down. The kitchen smelled of eggs, toast, and something else I couldn't quite place. When Ryan handed me my favorite mug, I took a whiff and immediately paused. It had this strange chemical smell, like something bitter or metallic. I looked up at him, and he smiled, urging me to take a sip. My stomach twisted. Something didn't feel right. My sister-in-law, Megan, had just come over and was sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. Ryan had poured her a mug too. I made a split-second decision and said, "Oops, I think you took mine," and casually swapped mugs with her. She didn't even notice. She took a sip right away. I watched her. 5 minutes later, Megan started coughing uncontrollably. Her face turned pale. She stumbled out of her seat and rushed to the sink. I ran after her, my heart pounding. Then she collapsed. That was the moment everything changed. The police were called. An ambulance came. And Ryan, he stood frozen. I caught him staring at the original mug like he'd seen a ghost. But let me tell you how it all began. It didn't start with a mug of coffee. It started months ago, with the little things, strange behavior, late-night calls, secrets. Back when things seemed normal, Ryan and I had been married for 8 years. We had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing that seemed life-shattering. Megan moved in with us after her breakup, saying she needed a few weeks to get back on her feet. I agreed, even though I had a weird gut feeling about it. At first, things were okay. Megan helped with chores, made dinner sometimes, and even took our dog Max on long walks. But I started to notice how Ryan laughed more around her, how they shared glances, how late they stayed up watching movies. And then, I began finding Megan's things in our bedroom, her earrings on the nightstand, her hair tie on Ryan's side of the bed. When I confronted Ryan, he brushed it off. "You're imagining things," he said with that tired voice that made me feel like I was being dramatic. Megan played innocent too, saying she must have misplaced her things. But something didn't add up. So I started writing things down. Dates, times, conversations. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that it was all in my head. But the gut feeling wouldn't leave. And soon enough, I found a hotel receipt in Ryan's coat pocket. It was dated the same day he claimed he was working late. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I started planning. That morning, when Ryan offered me coffee so eagerly, everything clicked. The strange behavior, the sudden cheerfulness, the odd smell. And when Megan took the sip meant for me, it felt like fate had stepped in. But as Megan lay unconscious, I realized this went deeper than just betrayal. And I had a choice to make. Do I reveal what I know and risk everything, or play it smart and gather proof? I thought the worst had already happened. I was wrong. Because when the police started asking questions, Ryan disappeared from the kitchen. And what I found in our bedroom later that night changed everything I thought I knew about the man I married. The moment I swapped mugs with my sister-in-law, Karen, everything changed. I didn't think much of it when my husband, Jake, handed me a cup of coffee that morning. But as I lifted it to my nose, a strange smell hit me, bitter, almost metallic. It was faint, but off. I joked, "Did you burn the beans today?" Jake just smiled. That smile stuck with me, a little too long, a little too tight. I shrugged it off and swapped my cup with Karen's while she was looking at her phone. Just a silly, random move. Minutes later, Karen was on the floor, unconscious. Her body twitched. Jake dropped his mug and yelled her name. I froze. My ears buzzed. Everything spun. What had I just avoided? Was it really the coffee? Why did he look at me like that just before she collapsed? 3 days earlier, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Karen had flown in from Texas to stay with us for a week. She said she needed a break from her busy life, her stressful job, and her crumbling marriage. Jake welcomed her warmly, maybe too warmly. I thought it was just him being polite, but the way they laughed together. I tried not to think too hard about it. Life in our house had always been simple. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. Jake was a pharmacist, always coming back late but bringing me sweet gifts, chocolates, flowers, or sometimes just hugs. We had our ups and downs, like every couple, but I never imagined I'd be second-guessing the man I had loved for 8 years. The first sign that something was off started 2 weeks before Karen arrived. I noticed Jake had become more distant. He barely spoke at dinner. He spent long hours on his phone, often smiling to himself, only to quickly hide the screen when I walked by. When I asked, he'd shrug and say it was work. I chalked it up to stress. Maybe he had a rough time at work. I even made him his favorite chicken Alfredo one night to cheer him up. He smiled and thanked me, but it felt hollow. The same night, I heard him whispering in the garage. I walked in, and he quickly ended a call. Just checking some prescriptions, he said. But there was no medicine in sight. When Karen arrived, things got weirder. She acted normal, warm, chatty, but I couldn't shake the tension between them. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was being paranoid. Still, something was wrong. Jake acted like a teenager when she was around, laughing too loud, leaning in too close. Then came the coffee morning. I had stayed up late the night before, working on a client's project. Jake offered to make me coffee in the morning. He rarely did. I found it sweet. Maybe he was trying to make up for being distant. But that strange smell in the cup, it didn't smell like any coffee I knew. Something told me to switch mugs. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was just curiosity. I'll never know what pushed me to do it, but when Karen collapsed just minutes later, it all clicked. We called 911. Jake was frantic, yelling for help, trying to wake Karen. But his panic didn't feel real. It felt staged. The EMTs arrived, rushed Karen to the hospital, and Jake rode with her. I was left alone, shaken, confused, terrified. The next day, the hospital called. Karen had traces of a strange substance in her system, something not commonly found in food or drink. Something Jake had easy access to. I didn't tell the hospital that Jake was a pharmacist. I needed time. Time to think, to figure out what this all meant. Why would my husband want to hurt me, or Karen? Was she the target, or was I? And why did that cup smell so strange? That night, I went into the garage and looked through Jake's drawers. What I found next changed everything. The weight of her words crushed me like a boulder. He knows we talked. I sat beside Marissa in the hospital room, trying to process everything. Her voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper, but her eyes said enough. She was terrified. What do you mean? I asked, leaning closer. She looked around the room, then at the door. He found out about the journal. What journal? I wrote everything down. Everything he told me. I didn't trust him either, not completely. It's all hidden under the loose floorboard in your guest room closet. She winced, clutching her side. That night, I was going to give it to you. I think he figured it out. That's why he gave me that mug. My stomach turned again, not from fear, but from betrayal. I had trusted Daniel with my whole heart, and now it seemed like he had plotted against me with precision. I gently held her hand. We're going to fix this. But you need to rest now. As I left the hospital, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You don't have much time. He's planning something new. I replied, Who are you? No response. I drove home with one goal, find that journal. Daniel was in the backyard when I pulled into the driveway. He waved at me, smiling like nothing had happened. I waved back, forced a cheerful expression, and walked straight inside. Once inside, I ran to the guest room, shutting the door behind me. I threw the closet open and dropped to my knees, crying at the floorboards. My fingers trembled. Finally, one lifted, and there it was. A small, navy blue journal, worn at the edges, hidden beneath the dust. I flipped it open. Page after page was filled with Marissa's neat handwriting. Notes about strange conversations with Daniel, times he went missing, hushed calls he thought she didn't hear. And one entry that made my hands go cold. Daniel said he's working with someone. A woman. He said they'd be free once she's gone. A woman? Working with someone? Suddenly, the garage door opened. My heart leapt. I shoved the journal into my hoodie and ran downstairs. Daniel stepped inside, wiping his hands. I'm making lasagna tonight. Thought we could use something comforting. I smiled. Smells good already. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He knows you found it. My eyes shot to Daniel. He was looking at me too long. Watching. Waiting. I made up an excuse to go upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I pulled the journal out and scanned the next few pages. Marissa had started suspecting Daniel months ago, but it was the mention of the cabin that caught my attention. He asked me to meet him at the cabin next week. Said it's where it all started. I don't know if I should go. I knew the place. Daniel's uncle had a cabin upstate, abandoned now. That's where it all started. That's where I had to go. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed someone I could trust. My best friend, Rachel. We'd been close since college. She'd been in Spain for a month but had just come back. I called her and begged to meet. She agreed. I'm at the cafe on Jefferson. Come now. I told Daniel I was meeting Rachel for coffee. He didn't argue, but the way he watched me as I put my coat on sent shivers down my spine. When I reached the cafe, Rachel was already there, waving at me from a corner booth. We hugged tightly, and I nearly cried. What's going on? She asked. I placed the journal on the table. You're not going to believe any of this. I told her everything, about the coffee, the swap, the texts, Marissa's words, the journal, the cabin. Her jaw dropped. This is insane. Anna. He tried to poison you. I don't know what he tried. But I can't ignore it anymore. Rachel flipped through the journal, eyes narrowing. You're not going to that cabin alone. I wasn't planning to. She looked up. We'll go tomorrow. Together. Just as we stood to leave, I saw him. Daniel. Across the street. Watching through the cafe window. He didn't move. Just stood there. Smiling. Rachel saw him too. Is he following you? I don't know. But we have to go. Now. We hurried out the back exit. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at Rachel's place. But even there, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept going back to that journal. And one word in it I hadn't noticed before. Phase 3, reclaim. What did that mean? The next morning, we packed a few essentials and hit the road before sunrise. Rachel drove while I stared out the window, heart pounding with every mile. We reached the cabin just before noon. It looked just as I remembered, old, creaky, and cold even in the spring sun. We stepped inside slowly. Dust covered the furniture, and spider webs hung in corners. But something was off. On the table was a note. Fresh. It had one word. Welcome. I turned to Rachel, eyes wide. Then the door slammed shut behind us. The slam echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. Rachel spun around and yanked the door, but it was locked tight. What the? She muttered, yanking harder. It's stuck. No, I whispered, backing away from the door. It's not stuck. It's locked. From the outside. We were trapped. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, scanning the room. Dust swirled in the beam, but now that we were inside longer, I started noticing things that didn't belong. A fresh blanket draped across the armchair. a half-burned candle on the windowsill, a new lock installed on the inside of the bedroom door. This place had been used recently. Rachel noticed it too. Someone's been living here. There was no signal inside, so we made our way to the back window. I opened it slowly, listening. No birds, no wind, just eerie silence. Then I heard it. Footsteps, outside, circling the cabin. Rachel grabbed a poker from the fireplace, her face pale but determined. I held my breath, heart thundering in my chest. We waited. The footsteps stopped right outside the back window. Rachel raised the poker, ready to strike. Then, nothing. I slowly peeked out the window. No one. Just trees. Silence. Rachel exhaled. I think we're scaring ourselves. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Nice of you to come. She dropped the phone. How the hell does he know we're here? He's watching, I said. He's been watching. We searched the cabin for a weapon, an escape, anything. In the bedroom, Rachel found a trapdoor in the floor. I'd never noticed it before. We pried it open and shined our flashlights down. It was a root cellar. Old wooden steps led into the darkness. Cold air rose from the hole, and the smell of mildew and something else, chemical, maybe, hit my nose. We're going down. Rachel asked. We have to. We descended slowly. The cellar was lined with shelves, cans, boxes, tools, and in the back, something covered in a top. Rachel reached for the top, and I grabbed her wrist. Wait. We both stood there, listening again. Nothing. She ripped the top off. A generator. A box of phones. Some old VHS tapes labeled with dates. And a folder marked. My fingers trembled as I picked it up and opened it. Inside were photos. Photos of me. At the grocery store. At the gym. In our backyard. With Rachel. With Marisa. Dozens of them. Dated and time-stamped. Rachel looked horrified. He's been stalking you for months. Underneath the photos was a list. My name, Marissa's, Rachel, and one more name I didn't recognize. Emily Carson. Rachel said, "You know her." I shook my head. Never heard of her. Rachel snapped photos of everything with her phone. We take this to the cops. Tonight. We climbed out of the cellar and were about to head to the front door when glass shattered. Something flew through the front window and landed with a thud in the living room. It was a brick, wrapped in a piece of paper. Rachel picked it up and unfolded it. Go home now, or Rachel's next. She froze. I felt the blood drain from my face. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number, last chance. I grabbed her hand. We have to go. Now. We climbed out the back window and ran through the woods toward where we parked the car off the road. But when we got there, the car was gone. Tire tracks. But no car. Rachel pulled out her phone. No signal. We have to walk, I said. There's a gas station 5 miles down the road. We started walking. Rachel kept looking behind us. I kept listening for anything. After what felt like forever, headlights appeared in the distance. A truck. I stepped into the road, waving frantically. Hey! Stop! Please! The truck slowed down, then pulled up beside us. The window rolled down. And there he was. Daniel. Smiling behind the wheel. Need a ride? He asked. My heart dropped into my stomach. Rachel reached for the poker in her bag. But he just laughed. You didn't think I'd let you find the cabin and leave alive, did you? Then he hit the gas. The truck peeled away, leaving a cloud of dust, and a phone on the ground where the truck had been. It was Rachel's. I picked it up. It was unlocked. There was one new video. I played it. And what I saw made me collapse to my knees. Because it wasn't a video of us. It was a video of Daniel and Marissa. From months ago. And they were kissing. The world spun. My hands trembled as I clutched the phone, watching the video loop again and again. Daniel. My husband. And Marissa. My own sister-in-law. Their lips tangled in a kiss, their arms around each other in my living room, on the very couch I had picked out last Christmas. Rachel knelt beside me. Are you okay? I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But all I could do was laugh, a broken, hollow laugh that echoed down the road. He's been with her, I whispered. And all this time, I thought she was my friend. My sister. Rachel looked at the screen again. This wasn't just a one-time thing. I nodded slowly. She's in on it. Whatever he's planning, she's part of it. We didn't speak for the next mile. The silence was heavy, like we were both holding our breath. My mind kept flashing back to the coffee mug. The bitter smell. The wrong scent. The way Daniel watched me, just a little too closely. Rachel broke the silence. Do you think he tried to poison you? I hesitated. I don't know, I said. But I swapped our mugs at the last second. You drank what was meant for me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. We reached the gas station just as dawn broke. The attendant, a sleepy man with a trucker hat and a Mountain Dew, looked up in surprise as we stumbled in. You ladies okay? He asked. Rachel leaned against the counter. We need a phone. And the police. He handed us the phone and I dialed 911. My fingers felt numb, but my voice was steady. I told the operator everything. The mug. The video. The stalking. The cabin. The photos. Within 20 minutes, a cruiser arrived. A young officer stepped out. His name tag read Deputy Harris. He had kind eyes. We'll get you safe, he promised. Let's go over everything. We sat in the back of the store, sipping water, while Rachel showed him the folder photos, the video, the texts. His jaw clenched. You need to know, he said. This isn't the first time we've had reports on Daniel Marks. My heart stopped. What? 3 years ago. Another woman filed a complaint. Said she felt threatened. She moved out of state before we could follow up. Name was Emily Carson. Rachel and I exchanged a look. The folder. The name. He's done this before, Rachel whispered. Deputy Harris nodded. We'll bring him in. But you two need protection until we do. We'll assign a unit to your house. No, I said. I'm not going back there. The deputy paused. Then you'll stay at a safe house. Just for a couple of days. Rachel and I agreed. We rode in silence as the cruiser took us across county lines to a small ranch-style home behind a church. Inside, it was cozy. Clean sheets, stocked fridge, no cameras. We stayed there all day. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Daniel had been planning this. For how long? What was he hoping to gain? My life insurance? My family's small inheritance? He wanted me out of the way. But he wasn't going to get what he wanted. The next morning, Deputy Harris returned. We've got something, he said. He placed a bag on the table. Inside was a mug. My mug. Found it in his trunk, he said. And it tested positive for ethylene glycol. Antifreeze. My stomach turned. He tried to poison me, I whispered. Deputy Harris nodded grimly. He knew what he was doing. This wasn't a mistake. And Marissa? Rachel asked. She's gone, he said. Packed up and disappeared overnight. We're tracking her phone, but it's turned off. I clenched my fists. He can't get away with this. Harris looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. He won't, he said. But there's more. You'll want to sit for this. He placed another folder on the table. This one had photos too. Surveillance photos. Daniel, at a storage unit. Daniel, at a pharmacy, buying antifreeze. Daniel, meeting a man we didn't recognize, handing him an envelope. Rachel leaned forward. Who's that guy? We don't know, Harris admitted. But that storage unit, he'd been paying for it under a fake name for over 2 years. He opened another photo. It was the inside of the unit. And in the center, a mannequin, wearing my clothes. A wig that looked just like my hair. And next to it, a burned photo of me and Rachel. Rachel gasped. This is sick. He was practicing, I whispered. For something. We were quiet for a long time. Then Harris stood up. We're putting out an alert. He's not going to hide long. But Rachel wasn't listening. She was staring at the burned photo. Her lips moved silently, then she looked at me. You said there was another folder, she whispered. What? At the cabin, she said. You said there were 2 folders. My heart skipped a beat. There was another folder. I had left it behind. And in that moment, I knew, whatever was in that folder, it was the final piece. I stood up. We have to go back. Deputy Harris shook his head. Too dangerous. I'll go alone, I said. I don't care. Rachel grabbed my arm. Then we go together. And just like that, we were back in the cruiser. Back in the woods. Back at the cabin. But this time, when we opened the door, the place had been trashed. Every drawer yanked out, every photo shredded, every shelf overturned. And the folder. Gone. But there, nailed to the wall with a hunting knife. A photo of Rachel. With a message scrawled in red across her face. She's next. Rachel froze. Her face turned pale as she stared at the photo pinned to the wall. Her own eyes stared back at her, scratched out in red ink. The words "she's next" burned into our brains like a brand. I stepped in front of her, pulling the photo off the wall with shaking hands. He knows we're on to him, I whispered. Deputy Harris, who had escorted us this time despite the danger, swept his flashlight across the cabin. He was here, just hours ago, he said. He must have found the second folder before we did. That means whatever was in it, it was the key. Rachel's voice trembled. He's watching us. The forest outside was still. Eerily still. Like even the birds knew something terrible was lurking nearby. Deputy Harris called in backup. We need to get you both out of here. He's unstable. But I shook my head. I'm done running, I said. We searched the cabin, top to bottom, hoping he had missed something, any clue. Behind the broken dresser, Harris found a flash drive taped to the wall. Bingo! We left fast, sirens blaring and headlights piercing the darkness as 2 other squad cars escorted us back to the station. Rachel sat beside me, silent, gripping my hand. Back at the station, they plugged the flash drive into a secure laptop. The screen loaded slowly, then displayed a folder titled Blueprint. Inside were dozens of files, detailed plans, maps, photos of our house, from inside, and another folder named Backup Plan. Deputy Harris clicked it open. Inside, a video. Daniel, speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, he said, then I've already won. And you'll never see her again. My heart stopped. He tilted the camera and showed a dark basement. A figure tied to a chair. Rachel gasped. It was her. Another Rachel. The one beside me grabbed the edge of the desk, breath catching. That's not me. Deputy Harris looked at her slowly. I think it is. I stood and backed away from her. What's going on? Rachel, or the woman I thought was Rachel, smiled softly. I didn't want it to end this way, she whispered. Harris stepped between us. Stay where you are. But she didn't listen. She pulled something from her coat pocket. A syringe.
Don't!
I yelled, but it was too late. She stabbed it into her own arm. Collapsed instantly. Paramedics rushed in. I stood frozen as they tried to revive her. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The woman who had escaped with me slept beside me in the safe house, held my hand, ate dinner with me. She wasn't Rachel, and the real Rachel was still missing. The woman was alive, barely, and rushed to the hospital. Later that night, Deputy Harris sat with me at the station. The screen still displayed the paused video. She was planted, he said quietly, sent by Daniel to keep you off his trail. I stared at the screen. I need to find my sister. The deputy gave me a long look. We have someone, he said. Someone who might know where she is. He opened another video file. It was blurry, shaky. A woman tied to a chair, crying, screaming. A door opened, and Daniel stepped in. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Marissa, and she was holding a knife. I told you, Daniel said calmly. No one ever betrays me and lives. The video ended. I stood slowly. No more waiting. No more hiding. Deputy Harris met my gaze. Then let's bring them down. 3 days later, after a statewide manhunt, authorities located an abandoned farmhouse 5 hours away. Inside the basement, they found Rachel, weak but alive. Daniel and Marissa had fled. But not far. A tip from a local motel clerk, who saw Daniel's face on the news, led to their arrest. Daniel was found with over $80,000 in cash, fake IDs, and a vial of antifreeze. Marissa was armed, but they didn't resist. Not when they saw me standing outside the police van. Not when I looked them dead in the eye and said, I swapped mugs, Daniel. The trial was swift. Attempted murder, conspiracy, identity theft, kidnapping, multiple charges. They'll never see the outside world again. As for me, I moved to a new town, started a new life. Rachel's recovering slowly, and we've never been closer. I still don't know how I survived. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe, deep down, I always knew something was off. But one thing's for sure. The day he handed me that strange-smelling cup of coffee was the day he lost. Forever.